Hello guys, it is Teenage Marvel Fan back with another video, and in today's video I will be reviewing the third part of the Black Vortex event in Guardians of the Galaxy Mission Breakout. And if you have not seen my reviews on the first two parts, then go ahead and check those out, but I'm just going to get right into it with this review. So you start off the episode with Peter Quill. So he is now in like this whole claymation thing, which if you don't know what that is, it's basically that thing where like you have puppets or action figures that are like made out of clay, and then you make movies with them by like recording it and stuff. It's kind of like stop motion, but it's not. It I think they did this for like Rudolph and like those classic movies like that. But anyway, so he wakes up and then he realizes that he's made of clay, and he's like super excited that he's like all flexible and stuff, and he can mess up his face any way he wants, and he can make his muscles huge. But then his arms start melting, and that's when he realizes that he's headed for the sun. So then he has to cool the place down, so he uses his blasters to blast the place with ice and freeze it and stuff. But then that doesn't work out very well. So then his arm, like, his whole arm pops off, and he has to grab his arm to be able to steer away from the sun. But his arm is very restless and not cooperative, so his arm doesn't want to be caught. So he basically has to chase his arm around the ship. And then when he finally does grab his arm, he can't get it back on because then things start melting again, and then it like slaps him, and he's literally hitting himself. But then after a while, Quill gets a message from Gamora. She explains everything. He has to grab the magic twig, and then just to quickly summarize this, because this part is kind of boring, he realizes that his arm isn't actually trying to go against him. They're on the same side, and his arm is trying to help him escape, because his arm is trying to shoot him and melt him, because if he gets melted, then he can fall, then he can melt through that little grating piece that's on the floor, so then they can escape. So then that's what they do. He puts his arm back on, and then he starts shooting himself and melting himself, and then he falls through there, and then I assume he uses the magic twig to make a door and get out of there. And then you move on to the next part, which is one of the best parts of the whole 4-part thing, other than the group part, because that part was like the best. But basically, Rocket Raccoon is in a like 60s cartoon. It kind of reminds me of like a mixture of Looney Tunes and Tom and Jerry. So Rocket has the twig and is now a flower, and because it's a cartoon, it's walking around like a dog. So the twig is supposed to take him somewhere so that he can get out. So then he's following the twig, but then he runs into a lady, and she screams because she's like, "Oh, it's a rodent! So scary." So then she calls the exterminators, but then Rocket looks up at the lady, and it's just a pair of legs with eyes on top. So that's Rocket should be the one calling the exterminators, not her. But then the exterminators show up, and it's Ronan the exterminator. So it was nice to see Ronan return for this, because Ronan's pretty cool. But then there's like this. It's basically Tom and Jerry, where like Rocket is the mouse, and Ronan is Tom, and Ronan is trying to like smash Rocket with his hammer. And then there's a lot of comedy in here and stuff. And then Rocket escapes to the forest, and then he sees a shadow following him, but then he gets scared because he thinks that it's Ronan, and then he almost blasts his face off, but then he realizes that it's Drax, and Drax has the other twig with the flower, so they're reunited, but then Ronan steals the flowers, so then that was their only way home, so then they need to get those back so that they can get home. So then there's this, oh, oops. Yep, so then there's this huge chase scene between those three, where Drax and Rocket are trying to get the flowers, and Ronan is trying to keep them away from him. So then they end up getting the flowers back, and then they the flowers lead them to where they need to go, so then they can escape. And then that is pretty much where the episode ends. This is a pretty good part for the 4-part thing. The middle parts are always the best in things like these. So 2 and 3 are definitely my favorite parts of this 4-part thing. But stay tuned for my review on the 4th part of Black Vortex, which is also a very good part because Groot returns and all the Guardians are reunited. And then there's also the beginning of it is one more like different animation thing because they're going to be in an 8-bit video game, which is pretty cool. So stay tuned for that. If you like this video, then go ahead and watch my previous videos if you haven't already. Like I said, stay tuned for the 4th part. But anyway, thank you so much for watching. Please remember to like, comment, and subscribe. And I hope to see you in my next video so I can bestow all my Marvel knowledge upon you.